Ross Tucker, our good buddy, the former NFL offensive lineman, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. And you can check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Also a game analyst for the Eagles in their preseason. Also does some college football and NFL for CBS in Westwood One. Ross joins us now. How would you answer that? Most iconic NFL team in history is?
For me, it's probably either the Packers or the Steelers. And it was interesting, Dan, hearing you guys talk about it. You know what it really is? Like for all of us, our age group, it's whoever was featured the most on NFL film was from the 60s and 70s. Yeah. That is what's iconic. I can just picture Vince Lombardi, and all those videos. Come on, guys, let's go. The Green Bay power sweep. Or the videos of like Lynn Swann being in the air for 48 seconds, catching passes in Super Bowls. I think it's hard for any other team to be more iconic than the teams that were so revered and featured on those NFL films videos from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, it's like they had a head start because they were successful at a time when we didn't get to watch all of the games. Maybe you got to see your team featured with Howard Cosell on Monday Night Football with the 3-minute highlights. But I don't think there's a wrong answer if it's the Cowboys, Steelers, Packers, or Raiders. It just depends on, what was your fandom growing up, and was it based off your dad or your grandfather? Because that's usually where it starts. If you're a fan of that team now and you're in your 30s, chances are it was based off of who your dad was rooting for. How important is preseason?
Well, I think to the teams themselves, I think we saw last year, probably not all that important. To the players that are playing tonight, it's everything. I mean, I had some guy on Twitter hit me up at Ross Tucker NFL and say preseason doesn't mean you know what. And I just replied back to him, Dan, there's 90-man rosters, right? We won't see hardly any starters tonight. So there's at least 50 guys playing tonight, okay, that were two-time All-State, two-time All-Conference in college, maybe the best athlete to ever come from their hometown, that the 2.5, 3 quarters they play tonight, it's the most important game of their lives. I'm talking about guys 50 to 90 on the roster, certainly 65 to 90 on each roster. It's the most important game of their life. So if you don't care about that, that's fine. That doesn't bother me. I get it. You just want the starters. You just want the games that count. That's fine. But number one, to those guys, it means everything. And number two, just don't tell me you're the biggest fan ever. Like, I always laugh when people are like, I'm a diehard Cowboys fan. I'm the biggest fan ever. But they don't watch the preseason. Like, there are a lot of fans out there. They watch every second of the preseason because they care about the third string tight end and the O-line depth, and they want to know who the fourth corner will be. And it's totally acceptable if you don't feel that way. Just do me a favor. Don't call yourself the biggest fan ever.
How do you make a roster during preseason if you're a borderline player?
Two things. Number one is first of all, it starts by doing something to stand out. There's 90 guys now. There's only 80 guys, Dan, when I was playing. But with 90 guys, especially if you're one of these bottom of the roster, undrafted guys, you must do something unique or different to stand out. And mine was taking the aggression to another level, right? Like having the coaches have to tell me to calm down. That's one way. They love that. Like Joe Judge has all the Giants players running and doing push-ups. Meanwhile, the next day he's like, I got to be honest, that really turned me on. I really like that. They all act like they don't like fights, Dan. They're all full of it, okay? If you're a football coach, it's because at one point you loved football and you played it, which means you loved the physical part of it, which means you love that. You love it. I mean, Dan Campbell at least admits it. I love Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell's like, oh, that was amazing. You see that? Like, at least he says it. So number one, you have to stand out in some way. And then number two, the coaches have to trust you. They have to trust you, which means you cannot mess up mentally. Honestly, Dan, I wasn't that physically gifted but I never messed up mentally. I always did what the coaches wanted me to do. I blocked the right guy the way they wanted me to block him. And then I tried to kill the guy to the best of my ability. And that's like the only reason I made it with Schottenheimer as a rookie and then stuck around for a while.
But I guess you get cut then if you do mess up something mentally. If you're a lineman, I'm guessing.
Yeah, any position, Dan. It is the single biggest reason why guys don't make it. I think NFL football is way more complicated, or at least detailed, than people realize. I can't tell you. I mean, I've seen guys that bench press 600 pounds. They just couldn't figure it out. I've seen guys that were way more talented than me. They didn't know who to block when the defense would change their alignment. And honestly, some of the guys, Dan, I actually felt bad for. There was a kid I remember. He was really gifted. He spent every second, Dan, studying the playbook. And if you would ask him, he would know it. You'd say, well, what happens if they do this? What happens if they do that? But then when he actually got out there, Dan, and they're flying around and it happens in a split second, it's a different type of intelligence. And some guys, it comes very naturally for, and other guys really struggle with it. And if you really struggle with the football IQ, the FBI, if you will, football intelligence, you're going to have a really tough time sticking around the NFL as a player.
More intriguing team this season, the Steelers or the Cowboys?
They're both pretty intriguing. I'm going to say Steelers because of what happened last year, because of a totally new offensive line, and because of Big Ben. I mean, I go on in Pittsburgh radio. I live in central Pennsylvania. There were a lot of people in Pittsburgh, including, radio guys and fans. They wanted the team to move on for Big Ben. Yeah. They wanted to turn the page. They thought Big Ben, and think that Big Ben's washed up. They wanted to see what Mason Rudolph could do in his last year under contract and or turn the page and get the next. I thought they were nuts. I think the Steelers did the right thing, giving Ben one last chance, especially when you have a roster with Cam Hayward and Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt and these guys. I think that those guys and Ben have earned the right to make one more run at this thing. I mean, they were 11-0 last year. I thought they were the best team in the NFL until the wheels came off.
How many legitimate Super Bowl contenders do you think we have this year?
Maybe 6.
So Chiefs, Buccaneers.
So in the NFC, maybe 3. Tampa,
Rams,
Green Bay, and maybe the Rams. I don't see the Niners or the Seahawks getting there. So in the NFC, I'm saying maybe 3, and I think even the Rams are dubious. In the AFC, it's obviously Kansas City. I would say Buffalo, Cleveland, nobody in the AFC South, nobody else AFC West. I don't think Baltimore's legit. I'm saying 6 total. I'm saying the 6 I just gave you, 3 in each conference.
And I wonder if our expectations are a little high on the Rams, because as soon as they got Matthew Stafford, I said, I don't know what the odds are, but that's my MVP pick. And then all of a sudden, I started to see where there were a lot of people who thought, oh, the Rams, they could go to the Super Bowl and Matthew Stafford could be the MVP. Like Peter King was gushing that Matthew Stafford's going to throw for 6,000 yards. I don't know. Are our expectation level a little too high for the Rams?
I think it is. Look, I think Matthew Stafford is better than Jared Goff, but I don't think it's as pronounced as everybody else seems to think. I mean, most of these years, if you looked at quarterback rankings, Stafford was probably somewhere between 10 and 15, and Goff might have been between 15 and 20. I don't know. I mean, how much of a difference is that, Dan? Is that a 2 or 3 win difference? Is that Super Bowl or not? I don't know. I mean, and by the way, when they get Stafford, they lose John Johnson and Troy Hill. Both those guys went to Cleveland. So they lost 2 of the guys that were really good in their secondary. I mean, they gained Stafford, but they lost some other guys. And I'm just fascinated by them. I mean, they have no first round picks forever. They have no middle class. They have elite guys and guys making the minimum, and it's kind of working for him. We'll see if it works this year.
What, McLovin? You're rolling your eyes back there at Ross Tucker.
Well, Stafford was ranked 10 to 15 when he was with the Lions. Now that he's with Sean McVay and the Rams, don't you think he'll possibly move up that ranking?
I mean, he might. That's certainly what they're counting on. I guess what I would say about the Sean McVay thing always makes me laugh. He's obviously a good coach, right? But you ever notice how for 4 years, every time the Rams scored a bunch of points, it was Sean McVay. Oh my gosh, Sean McVay. I sound like Paulie doing my impersonation right there. Sean McVay. Oh my gosh, he's the greatest coach of all time.
He's got the best hair.
Genius.
He's got a great house.
And by the way, whenever the Rams stunk, it was, or they didn't do anything on offense, Jared Goff stinks. It's all Jared Goff's fault. You can't have it both ways, Dan. You can't, everything positive can't be McVay and everything negative is Goff. Like, let's split up both of them a little bit.
Yeah, but that happens with Kyle Shanahan. When that offense is clicking, that's Kyle Shanahan's offense. But when it's not, that Jimmy Garoppolo can't play.
It's a great point. It's a great point. they both deserve a slice of the success and futility pie. I agree.
It's great to talk to you. And what are you benching right now?
Not enough. By the way, how about this? Last Friday on the beach, okay? I did an hour walk on the beach, and every 5 minutes I did 20 push-ups. So I had done 160 push-ups, and then at the end I wanted to like rep out. I'm 256 pounds. I did 42 push-ups. I did my age in push-ups after doing 160. So I don't max out, but that's my new thing. Until I die, I want to be able to do my age in push-ups. Going to get tough in my 70s, certainly my 80s, but I want to try to do my age in push-ups.
Who's the strongest guy that you were ever around? Either teammate, played against?
Well, I was teammates with Larry Allen, who was ridiculously strong. I think he benched like 700 pounds. But there was a guy, Chris Valerial, who I played with in Buffalo. He's actually the head coach at St. Francis, which is an FCS school. Paulie probably watches all their games live out in Western PA. I saw him. They drafted a kid. Dan, this is a true story. We drafted a kid out of Vanderbilt that benched 600 pounds. And so there was a discussion on the Bills, who's the strongest guy? So we go to Valerial, who's like in his 8th year, and we're like, you know what you got to do, right? Like, I mean, he's like 32 years old. We're like, you know, he's like, yeah, I know. He puts 495 on the incline bench and reps it out for 10, gets off the bench and like stares at the Vanderbilt rookie. Just like, and we were like, yeah. It was awesome. It was meatheadness at its finest.
And you're the president and a member.
Proud member.
Yes, of course.
I'm surprised we're not doing this on a Meat Friday. Every Friday I see that tweet and I get so jealous.
It's great to talk to you. We'll check in with you during the season, Ross. Thank you.
All right, see you guys.
That's Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman and host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Nice.